Garden Rush is a very simple two-player game in which we will be creating patterns with tiles showing vegetables and then we score them. That's a pretty simple idea there. It lasts about 30 minutes, that seems about right, so it's a bit of an extended filler. The game is packaged in a very cool way, which is why I started by showing you the box and then I show you what you do with the box. First you slide out the box, which looks like a drawer almost, and then lo and behold, the cover, or the, how do you call it, the thing that you saw that went around the box becomes the board, two-player board, so each player will sit on one of the two sides and you will have a player right next to you, your own personal area, and then an area up there where you will place the tiles that are drawn. Back to the box, we remove the rule book, the first player's tile, just to mark who's the first player. It's me. There you go. The first player's tile. The trampoline, because we have this like really weird looking zany vegetables that will be jumping onto the trampoline and then on that line there, and then we have a bag full of wooden tiles representing veggies. And now each tile represents a type of veggie and it has two of them on one side and one of them on the other. And so the same applies for all of them. At the beginning of the game, we'll simply draw random tiles and place them in that central line. Now, it's super important when they enter the game, the tiles are always showing the two veggie side, not the one veggie side. Now, there are also some optional tiles, such as these, and they don't recommend that you use them the first game. After I started playing with those, I just put them in there because I like them, and so now I play the game with the optional tiles. But first I need to show you how the general game works, so just the basic idea. So that's how the game will look like a start, and the players will alternate taking turns, and when it is your turn, you simply choose one of those tiles, as simple as that, and you add it to your board. That's it. Now, if you're just moving it into the column that the tile is already facing, the tile stays with the two side facing up, just like so. That would be the end of my turn, or maybe I could have done that. If I decide to move the tile into another column, then it takes some casualties in the landing, and so we turn it to the one vegetable side. Then the remaining tiles slide down and we replace one of the trampoline with another one from the bag. And now my opponent goes, and maybe my opponent does that, and so this is what happens there. And then it's my turn again, and maybe I move this one down here, and that happens. And then my opponent really wants the eggplants, and that's what happens. Oh, isn't that nice? So that's the general idea. Now you will see these symbols here. If the vegetable that you are collecting is placed on one of those symbols, then you trigger its effect. Here, for example, I can move another tile, not the one that I just used, and say, for example, I decide to move that one there. If I get this symbol here, then I can flip a tile. So if I have a tile which is on the single vegetable side, I can flip it back to the two, or I can flip a tile from my opponent's board to one. Boo, mean. We'll see why that is. What that is mean. Here I get to collect another tile right away, and here I get to score tiles right away. Why so? Because during your turn, yes, you can get a new tile, or you can actually score tiles, and you score tiles by looking at these diagrams here. Each different tile scores in a different way depending on the type, scores in a different pattern. Carrots, I can score them when I have 2 diagonally adjacent or 4 diagonally adjacent. Eggplants, when it's 2 in a row, or a square of 4, or a rectangle of 6. And so that's pretty self-explanatory. These veggies here, I can score a single one, or an L, or a cross. Oh, what are the odds? I have an L there. These shapes here, you can also mirror them and rotate them. It's all good, so I could still score that one if that was the case. Now, you score a number of points equal to the spaces that you're scoring. That's a shape that covers 3 spaces. I'm scoring 3 points. And the box... Did I show you the box? But I didn't show you the bottom of the box that also doubles as the scoring track, and we place our gnomes there. And if I am this gnome here, this is like pink, then I go 1, 2, 3. I score 3 points, just like so. There we go. After I score all of the veggies that are on their 2 veggie side are flipped to the single veggie side, and the ones that are on the single side facing up are removed instead. Pretty simple, and that may free up some of these symbols again, incidentally, which may be good. Now, I told you about those optional tiles that you may want to include after the first game. Simply put, when you place them on your board, it will give you different symbols with different special actions, or you can choose to place them as moles, so they simply clog an area, they block an area. Of course, these you place in the garden of your opponent, unless then game effects are used to send them, and they can send them to the garden of the other person, and they can go back and forth quite a little bit. But that is the general idea. I am collecting veggies, trying to keep them as much as possible where they usually would be, because then I can score them twice. And maybe my opponent does something like that. There you go. And then when it's my next turn, I take that move like so, and my opponent does something. And then my following turn, I decide to score the 2 carrots, because that's how the carrots score. In this case, I'll score 2 points. Flip them, preserve them, score those 2 points up there. And we're good to go. Now, if you're playing with the extra tiles representing tools, you also get to trigger them when you pass one of these spaces. Otherwise, you're playing the basic game. These spaces are just normal scoring spaces. The game is over when a player reaches a score of 40, and if that happens, the player wins the game. Otherwise, if the bag runs out of tokens and all the tokens have been placed, and suppose this is the score, then the player with the highest score wins the game. So this is how you play Garden Rush. I love the production. It's super nice. It's super cute. These tiles are just funny. Fun and funny. Well, nice wooden tiles, pleasant to move around. The art is just funny and ridiculous. The idea that the veggies are jumping onto the trampoline and then jumping and reaching different areas. It's ridiculous, and it's also captured again in this really strange and entertaining art. And why not? Why can't it be strange and silly? Just like these 2 grumpy gnomes look strange and silly. The game moves quick, the decisions are simple, and yet it's fun. It's fun to build up certain patterns. It's a simple game. It feels satisfying in that you're building up to a pattern, and maybe you find a situation where you can take a certain tile, preserving the column so you get to use it more times, and you trigger an effect, and that gives you a combo. For a game this simple, I simply have a space of decision, which is not trivial, and it's still satisfying to be able to pull off some good combos. Occasionally, you will look at the garden of your opponent, and you'll see by doing something that's good for you, you can also take something away from them. Although starting a tug of war that way is not always profitable, it is an option. So it's super simple, but the decisions are actually pleasant and surprisingly, I wouldn't say deep, but satisfying and rewarding. And I found that you have a good degree of control here with all of these options, plus the extra effects, plus if you play with the optional tiles, more special effect to take into account. I assume you could also try to play it solo. You just take your turn and then you select a random, maybe you roll a die, you select a random tile to be removed and you see how high you score. I haven't played it that way. I only played it the standard way against a human opponent, and it works very well. It's fun, simple, light, entertaining. You can teach it to anybody quite quickly. And it plays well. Again, I also happen to like the way it's packaged, so I'm pretty impressed, and I had a good time playing Garden Rush.